In our headlines on this Tuesday, October 22nd. South Korea condemns what it called a military collusion with regard to North Korean troop involvement in Russia's war against Ukraine following a UN Security Council meeting where members sought to assess the regime's acts of aggression. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, Israel says it has assassinated the individual in charge of funding the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah during an attack in Damascus, Syria, earlier on Monday. And early voting is underway in the U.S. as the country counts down precisely 2 weeks to the presidential election on November 5th, which polls suggest is a closely contested race. We start with details of a rather disturbing image that has been shared online as the international community addresses North Korea's latest displays of defiance in support of Russia's warfare in Ukraine. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-ji reports.
North Korean and Russian flags displayed side by side, supporting claims that the North has sent troops to assist Russia to fight against Ukraine. A pro-Russian social media account posted this image, saying that it was taken in Pokrovsk, one of the strongholds on Ukraine's eastern front. Citing the head of the Center for Countering Disinformation at Ukraine's National Security and Defense Council, Ukrainian local media reports that whether the flags were actually there or photoshopped, Russia is apparently trying to create fear in Ukraine, to make people believe that there are hundreds of thousands of North Korean troops. This comes after South Korea's intelligence agency officially confirmed last week that North Korea had deployed around 1,500 Special Forces troops to Russia. Ukraine followed up with its own evidence, releasing a video showing soldiers lining up to receive their uniforms and equipment while speaking Korean, and a questionnaire that appears to have been prepared by Russia for North Korean soldiers for their military uniform measurements. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Monday called for decisive action from its allies.
It is obvious that Putin fears peace, which is why he is looking for ways to escalate the aggression and involve North Korea on the front line.
Amid rising concerns, military cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow is being voiced among the international community. During a UN Security Council meeting in New York on Monday local time, South Korea's ambassador to the United Nations said that by dispatching a large number of troops, North Korea will likely become an active belligerent in warfare, and that this could have consequences for all.
This is not merely an attack on the very integrity of the Security Council sanctions regime. It is a blatant attempt to undermine peace and security, not only in Europe and in Northeast Asia, but also across the entire globe.
The United States, which is yet to confirm the deployment of North Korean troops, told the 15-member council that if Russia is indeed turning to the North for manpower, it will be a sign of desperation on the Kremlin's part.
If true, this marks a dangerous and highly concerning development and an obvious deepening of the DPRK-Russia military relationship. We are consulting with our allies and partners on the implications of such a dramatic move.
Separately, the White House said that it'll be releasing a statement in the next couple of days. However, North Korea has rejected the claims, saying at the UN General Assembly meeting on the same day that they're baseless rumors, and that the regime does not feel the need to respond. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
Here in South Korea, the National Security Council has vowed a tangible action plan in accordance with the scale of North Korean support of Russian warfare against Ukraine. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon has more.
A quote, military collusion is what the presidential office called North Korea's deployment of troops to support Russia's invasion of Ukraine while calling for an immediate halt and the retrieval of forces. This came on Tuesday as the National Security Council held a standing committee meeting to discuss potential responses.
The government will implement phased response measures according to the progress of military cooperation between Russia and North Korea following North Korea's dispatch of combat troops. In this process, we will closely coordinate with our allies and friendly nations to ensure that strong and effective measures are taken against the Russia-North Korea military cooperation.
While the top office opted not to specify what the responses would be, as revealing them could impact future cooperation with Russia and North Korea, an official told reporters that responses could be through diplomacy, economic retaliations, or even military action. In addition, the top office says it's opened the possibility of the military cooperation between Pyongyang and Moscow threatening peace on the Korean Peninsula, and possible scenarios are being reviewed. It also condemned North Korea for neglecting its own people, calling it a criminal organization.
Meanwhile, attendees of the meeting pointed out that the North Korean regime, which has completely ignored the livelihoods and human rights of its people while focusing solely on nuclear missile development, is now driving young North Koreans into a senseless war of mercenaries for Russia. This, we noted, is an act of admitting that the regime is a criminal organization.
In the meantime, South Korea is the only country to confirm North Korea's deployment of troops for Russia, other than Ukraine, with President Volodymyr Zelensky saying so himself. A top office official says that the intel was a result of gathering and sharing with the nation's allies and friendly nations like the U.S. and Ukraine over an extended period of time. Therefore, the current stance taken by the U.S., who has much to consider before confirming this, is unrelated to the objectivity of the intelligence. In fact, confirmation should follow soon. In addition, the official said that it's not clear how the deployment will impact the front lines in Ukraine, as there are many factors that will play into it. And South Korea currently is diplomatically calling for the retrieval of troops before it gets to the front lines and to stop the cooperation at this stage. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, meanwhile, is playing host to this year's BRICS summit starting today, that is Tuesday, under the shadow of his war in Ukraine, and much attention is on the agenda of his interactions with its BRICS partners. Our Choi Soo-hyung reports.
Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping will meet again at the BRICS summit being held in Russia. Russia is hosting this year's three-day annual BRICS summit in the city of Kazan in the Russian Republic of Tatarstan from Tuesday. President Putin and President Xi are continuing their meetings at the BRICS summit following the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in Kazakhstan in July, a state visit to Beijing in May, and the Belt and Road Forum in China in October last year. This meeting comes after the South Korean National Intelligence Service announced that North Korea has sent troops to Russia in support of the war in Ukraine, raising attention as to whether the two leaders will discuss this issue. Returning with Xi, Putin is also set to hold multiple bilateral talks on the sidelines, with speculation that Russia's use of North Korean troops for its war in Ukraine will be on the agenda. The Kremlin has called the summit one of the largest-scale foreign policy events ever to be held in Russia. The theme of the event is strengthening multilateralism for fair global development and security. Amid heightened geopolitical tensions, BRICS, a group designed to bring together developing countries to challenge Western dominance, will kick off its largest summit yet, with 5 new member states this year. Along with Xi, India's Narendra Modi, Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and 24 heads of state are expected to attend, including the newest members of Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. The first ever summit of BRICS Plus will likely discuss the wars in Ukraine and the Middle East and improving economic and cultural cooperation within the bloc. And despite speculation that the Ukraine war and an international arrest warrant would isolate Putin, more countries are seeking membership, with Turkey, Azerbaijan and Malaysia already having made formal applications. During the summit, President Putin is also expected to advocate for a new global payment system, moving away from the Western-led financial system. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
In the Middle East, the man in charge of funding the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah has reportedly been killed in Syria. Our Park Gonu reports.
More Israeli attacks to cut off financial support for Hezbollah.
On Monday, the Israeli military said it conducted an airstrike on Damascus, Syria, resulting in Hezbollah's financial arm, who's been supporting the militant group with Iran-backed funds, dead. It also said it'll carry out more attacks in the coming days. Israel also launched airstrikes against Beirut on Sunday evening, targeting branches of a financial institution linked with Iran-backed Hezbollah. According to the Israeli military, it targeted money held by the Al-Qard Al-Hassan Association, which offers financial services to civilians in regions where Hezbollah has strong support. The airstrikes also targeted branches located in southern Lebanon. Israel and the U.S. have accused the association of being a cover for the militant group to fund its activities. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Envoy Amos Hochstein said Washington is working on a plan to end the conflict between Israel and Hezbollah for good, as the Biden administration looks to prevent the situation in the Middle East from spiraling out of control.
Well, the United States wants to end this conflict as soon as possible. We're working with the government of Lebanon, the state of Lebanon, as well as the government of Israel, is to get to a formula that brings an end to this conflict once and for all.
Hochstein, who's in Beirut, said he held a very constructive meeting with Lebanese Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri, a close ally of Hezbollah. Berri has been engaging in diplomatic efforts to end the conflict with Israel. With the U.S. presidential election only 2 weeks away, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is visiting the Middle East once again, hoping to push for negotiations to end the war in Gaza and secure the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas. Blinken's trip will be from Monday to Friday, taking him to Israel and other Middle Eastern countries. According to the U.S. State Department, Blinken will also seek to continue discussions on post-war plans and emphasize the need for Palestinians to find new ways to rebuild their lives. Park Eun-woo, Arirang News.
Right. In precisely 2 weeks' time, the U.S. will elect a new leader to take on a host of tasks both at home and overseas. For more on the U.S. presidential campaign, its polls as well as prospects, here's our political correspondent, Ishihu.
With just 2 weeks remaining until the November 5th U.S. presidential election, the Democratic presidential candidate, Vice President Kamala Harris, and the Republican candidate and former President Donald Trump are focusing their efforts to win over undecided voters in key swing states. Harris on Monday visited the battleground states of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin with former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney. There, Harris and Cheney held conversations with voters, many of whom were conservative, suburban women in the Midwestern states. Harris described Trump as a threat to democracy who is increasingly unstable.
And it should lead us to observe that he is increasingly unstable. But you don't have to take my word for it. Listen to the people who know him best.
Cheney, the daughter of Dick Cheney, the vice president under President George W. Bush and one of the most prominent Republicans to have endorsed Harris, backed her up.
He's a man who's unfit to be the president of this good and honorable and great nation.
Speaking on abortion rights and national security, Cheney painted Trump as irresponsibly dangerous, while describing Harris as the reasonable choice. Meanwhile, Trump visited another battleground state, North Carolina, whose conservative mountain regions were recently hit by Hurricane Helen. Trump appealed to religious voters, saying that he was saved during July's assassination attempt against him by a supernatural hand.
And I would like to think that God saved me for a purpose, and that's to make our country greater than ever before.
At another rally, Trump expressed strong outrage about a top voter concern, border security, and criticized the current administration.
Biden put this total stupid person in charge of our border. Think of it. Never made a call, never went there. She let it just all, she said, keep those borders open, let everybody come in.
On Monday, early voting opened in Florida and Texas, while some opened their booths last week. According to NBC's early voting tracker, more than 14 million Americans have already cast their ballots. And as opinion polls show a close race, the race for the White House remains a toss-up.
It's extremely close, especially in the battleground states. Among likely voters, 49% support Harris and 48% support Trump.
It's likely that in the next 14 days, Harris and Trump will continue to focus their campaigns on the 7 key swing states. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
On the local front, producer prices eased for the second month in a row in September. According to the Bank of Korea, the producer price index dropped 0.2% on month, following a fall by the same amount in August as well. September's drop was reportedly driven by plunging prices of industrial products, which offset gains in prices of agricultural products. Meanwhile, on year, September's producer price index was up by 1%. In sports news, the Los Angeles Dodgers and New York Yankees are poised to face off for the first time in over 4 decades at this year's Baseball World Series. The Dodgers sealed the World Series spot for the first time in 4 years in the 6th playoff for the MLB National League Champion Series, beating the New York Mets 10-5 this past Sunday, with Korean-American Thomas Hyun-soo Edman named Most Valuable Player. The first game of the World Series will take place on October 26th, with ticket sales setting near record highs. Meanwhile, Korea is the venue of Asia's first Disney 100 exhibition, which seeks to share the stories of this much-loved entertainment company over the past century. Our Ian Jin gives us a glimpse.
Big round black ears. Mickey Mouse made his first public appearance in the 1928 animated short film Steamboat Willie and has since become a symbol for Walt Disney. Now, marking a first in Asia, a special exhibition has arrived in Korea, offering a glimpse of Walt Disney's 100 years of magic.
Each one of those galleries is dedicated to Walt's own ideas and shows how those who follow in his footsteps continue to make magic, building on the very foundations that he established.
The Walt Disney Archives has opened its vault of treasures. From the life of creator Walt Disney to stories of adventures from the world of Disney, including Star Wars and Marvel, are conveyed through various media. There's also a Peter Pan attraction standing more than 2 meters tall and more than 250 rarely seen artifacts and works of art, costumes and props, and incredible memorabilia for Disney fans to enjoy. What's also special is that costumes from the 2023 Indiana Jones movie, The Dial of Destiny, are being exhibited for the first time in Seoul.
This exhibition is running in only 2 places around the world, one in Kansas City in the United States and the second here in Seoul. It shares some 250 of the same pieces.
The Walt Disney Company says it aims to go back to the basics to carry out Walt Disney's philosophy, and highlighted that the Asia-Pacific region, including South Korea, would be a pivotal platform for the next 100 years. The exhibition is being held at the K Museum of Contemporary Art until December 31st. Yoon-jin, Arirang News.
Also, a museum here in Seoul is showcasing a treasure trove of ancient Korean artworks that have yet to be shared with the broader public. Our Han Daun has details.
How long has Kansong waited to attain a collection of artworks that are rare to the eyes of the world? That is an excerpt from a narration about the Woria Milhue, or a secret meeting under the moon by Joseon-era painter Shin Yun-bok, in the possession of Kansong Art Museum. O Se-chang wrote this to include details of the works. He was a calligrapher and an independence activist who inevitably had a great influence on the formation of Korea's modern history and culture. You can get a glimpse of his perspective at this exhibition being held at the Kansong Art Museum. The exhibition will also include an unprecedented calligraphy masterpiece titled Hwajong by Princess Cheongmyeong, the daughter of King Seonjo of the Joseon dynasty. The exhibition showcases a comprehensive study of O Se-chang's calligraphy history, which has had a great influence on the formation of the Kansong Art Museum's collections.
He primarily collected paintings from the Joseon dynasty, and it appears this is a project based on works obtained in that process. Later, O Se-chang passed it on to Kansong in 1937, and it became part of the Kansong collection.
O Se-chang, Kansong's teacher, is also famous for leaving an album featuring a collection of Korea's painting history called the Keunyeok Hwahui. Keunyeok has the meaning a lot of mugunghwa, which, as the national flower of South Korea, symbolizes the country. And the collection illustrates the changes in the development of painting in Korea throughout its history. And contrary to what had been thought, it has been confirmed that the Kansong Art Museum holds 3 volumes of the Kunyok Hwahui.
There is great significance in the collection of the albums themselves, but it has never been highlighted. The 160th anniversary of his birthday may be just the right time.
The exhibition will include artworks from the Goryeo era, such as the piece Yangdo, delicately hand-painted by King Gongmin, to the modern era, and runs until December 1st. And for the first time since its renaming 53 years ago, the Kansong Art Museum has decided to charge for admission, starting with this exhibition. Pandan, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you the latest stories from around the globe. Tech billionaire and the world's richest man, Elon Musk, promised on Saturday to give away $1 million each day until the November 5th US presidential election to a lucky winner from those who have signed his online petition. And 3 winners have already been announced. The petition, created by Musk's campaign group, America PAC, which was set up to support Republican Donald Trump in the upcoming presidential contest, is one that supports the First and Second Amendments of the U.S. Constitution, free speech and the right to bear arms. America PAC's petition was created to encourage voters in 6 swing states, Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, and North Carolina, to sign and refer the petition to other voters, where a sum of up to $100 is promised for each referred signatory in some states. Now the legality of Musk's offer for voters is being questioned, with Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Josh Shapiro calling on law enforcement to investigate the action on Sunday. Australian Senator Lydia Thorpe heckled Britain's King Charles on Monday at a parliament reception for the monarch in Canberra, accusing him of committing genocide against the Australian people and saying she does not accept his sovereignty. She shouted, "You're not our king, you're not sovereign. You committed genocide against our people," as Charles finished a speech. Thorpe, an Aboriginal Australian independent politician and senator for Victoria since 2020, has made headlines before as an outspoken Indigenous rights activist. Vietnam's Communist Party elected Army General Luong Quang as the new state president on Monday. 67-year-old Quang won votes from his party members in parliament to be confirmed as To Lam's successor, who has now moved on to a much more powerful position of Communist Party leader following the death of the previous General Secretary, Nguyen Nhan Phu Trong, in July. Quang, who is also a member of the Politburo, Vietnam's top decision-making body, previously held a key position in the Secretariat of the Communist Party. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
All heavy rain warnings on the south coast have been lifted, but autumn rain is falling across the country, causing some cold temperatures. Please be careful, as there may be strong rain accompanied by thunder and lightning until dawn tomorrow. It will rain up to 50 millimeters in eastern parts of Gyeonggi-do Province, western parts of Gangwon-do Province, and northern Chungcheongbuk-do Province. 5 to 40 millimeters in the Seoul metropolitan area and other inland areas, and 20 on Jeju Island. This rain will mostly stop at dawn tomorrow. Please pay attention to traffic safety, as visibility will be low and the roads will be slippery in areas with rain. Tomorrow morning, Seoul will start off chilly at 11 degrees Celsius, Gwangju and Gyeongju 13 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 16 in Seoul, Daegu and Jeju 20 degrees. On Thursday morning, the temperature in Seoul is expected to drop to 8 degrees Celsius, and autumn cold is expected. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
Those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session. Do stay with us.